Super Mario Sunshine is known for a few things: tropical levels, flood, and collecting shine sprites, or simply shines, which replace the stars collected in Super Mario 64. There are a total of 120 shines to collect, but only 50 are needed to reach Bowser and beat the game. However, as you already know from the thumbnail of this video, that's not true. Super Mario Sunshine can be beaten by collecting only 3 shines, but it's pretty complicated. Actually, it's really complicated, and I'm going to break it all down in this video. I'm Ty from Press A, and this is beating Super Mario Sunshine with only 3 shines. Before we get into it, I just want to thank Dodo Airlines for sponsoring this video. Looking to get away this summer? Then Dodo Airlines has you covered. With them, you can travel to many different tropical destinations, like Serene Shores, Seaside Kingdom, and of course, Isle Delfino. If you appreciate a good vacation, then you should like this video. Thank you, and thank you, Dodo Airlines. So, how is it possible to beat Super Mario Sunshine with only 3 shines? Well, it starts off like any playthrough. We meet and get Flood, kill the polluted piranha plant on Delfino's airstrip, and collect the first shine. This shine needs to be collected to get into Delfino Plaza. Then it's a series of cutscenes, which some players choose to skip using a hacked file. That's because, after a vote by the speedrunning community in 2020, there are 3 main options for starting runs in Super Mario Sunshine: New File, Peach File, and Hacked File. New File means you start your run from a freshly created file. Peach File means you save after watching the first airstrip cutscene, which lets you skip that cutscene once you start a run. And then, Hacked File is a modded file which allows you to skip every early game cutscene, including the airstrip one, flood one, court one, Mario, and the jail one. But the rest of the game remains the same. To keep things fair, the Peach File and Hacked File have time offsets associated with them, to compensate for the amount of time runners save over actually watching these long, boring cutscenes. Which option you choose isn't important. The only thing that's important is that you're playing on a Japanese version of the game, specifically 1.0. Otherwise, the glitch utilized to beat the game with only 3 shines won't work. While the focus of this video is on how it's possible to beat the game with only 3 shines, and less so on the speed, I thought it was worth mentioning these different starting options, just in case you decide to look at the leaderboard and wonder why a hacked file would be allowed, like I did. Once in Delfino Plaza, it's business as usual, as we need to head straight to kill the polluted piranha plant that reveals the Pianta statue and Shadow Mario. Instead of running off to save Princess Peach from Shadow Mario, we'll spray the red X on the side of the statue that spawns a blue coin on the dock by the boathouse. However, this blue coin will not be collected. Instead, we'll now run after Shadow Mario and spray him to death. Next, we'll head back to the statue and spray the red X again and spawn the blue coin for a second time. We'll then trigger the Shadow Mario painting cutscene and then make our way to the dock where the blue coin spawned. But again, the blue coin is not collected. Instead, we spray the red X on this wall to spawn the blue coin at the statue, which also won't be collected. And we'll keep going back and forth doing this, spraying the red X's to spawn a blue coin for a total of 6 times. The blue coins themselves are not important. You actually don't want to collect them at all. It's the cutscene that plays when the blue coins spawn that's important, which again, needs to happen 6 times for reasons I'll explain later. Next, we want to make our way to the right bell tower. Without the rocket nozzle, a flood ability that shoots Mario high up into the air, we can get onto the bell tower by using the sewer here, which, when exiting a manhole, propels us high into the air and then hover from the roof here to the bell tower. Cleaning the bell here spawns a shine high above the bell tower, and if you think this is the second shine collected, then think again. For one, this shine can only be collected using the rocket nozzle, which is not available this early in the game. And 2, like the blue coins, collecting the shine is not important. It's the shine spawning cutscene that's important, which again, I'll explain later. Instead, the second shine that will be collected is the one in the left bell tower behind this turbo gate, which requires the turbo nozzle, another flood ability that propels Mario at extreme speeds and allows Mario to break open these suspiciously strong gates. Like the rocket nozzle, the turbo nozzle is not available this early in the game. But, as most people probably know, we don't need the turbo nozzle to collect this shine. Instead, we can utilize a glitch known as fruit clipping. By placing a fruit, which are abundant in Delfino Plaza, in front of the wall and then sliding down the wall between the fruit and the wall, we can clip into the building. How this works is that the fruit acts as a temporary obstruction, as the game's collision detection system treats the fruit as a solid object, and so when Mario interacts with it while sliding, his momentum is temporarily changed, which allows him to push through the wall's collision detection. But we can't just put the fruit anywhere. The placement of the fruit, as well as the angle and timing of the slide, are very important for executing this glitch. In this case, while holding a fruit, we want to have Mario standing towards the building on this specific tile, making sure he's standing in the middle of the tile when placing down the fruit. If Mario is too far back or too far forward, then the fruit won't be placed at the right distance for the building, and the glitch won't work when trying to clip through. Once in the right position and the fruit placed down in front of us, we can simply jump and slide down the wall and clip into the building, allowing us to collect our second shine. Next, we'll be collecting the third and final shine, and that's the shine you get from having the Chuckster Pinata throw you from the roof and into the nearby building where a shine is. Or, we can fruit clip again into the building. Clipping is faster than talking to the Chuckster, and more interesting, so we'll attempt it here. We can grab a banana from the tree here by spraying it down, and then wall jump up these buildings and make our way over to here. We want to get to the very top of the building, which we can do with a couple of spin jumps, or by doing this. For this fruit clip, we want to have Mario facing away from the window and line Mario's feet up with a little below this line formed by the roof shingles. From here, we can then backflip, and at the peak of Mario's backflip, when we throw the banana, Mario will clip into the building. Throwing too late or too early will prevent Mario from clipping through, so timing is important for this one. I surprisingly was able to do this on my first try, but it would be another 10 tries before I was able to clip in again. And this time, the banana clipped in too. And there you have it, the third shine collected, meaning no more shines will need to be collected to beat the game. But up until this point has been the easy stuff, and from here on out, things get very complicated. Next, we need to set up some barrels. Over in this area, we can find 2 barrels, one of which we need to take and set next to the Pianta statue. But of course, we can't just set the barrel anywhere. The visual cue for setting this barrel is having Mario's feet line up with the top of the second tile beside the statue where the red X is. It's not too precise. As long as the barrel is placed in this general area, we should be fine. This barrel will be used for a couple of reasons, which we'll see later. We can then grab the second barrel and take it over to the left bell tower here, where we collected the second shine. To place the barrel in the correct spot, we'll want to walk against this wall, and when the top left of the barrel is lined up with the top left of this tile in the wall, we'll then want to jump and do a ground pound, which will look like this. Mario will bonk off the wall into a spot where when we put the barrel down, the barrel will be set up at the perfect distance from the wall to make Mario clip into the building, just like fruit clipping from before. You'll know you're too early in ground pounding when you see Mario actually ground pound, and if you're too late, there will be too big of a distance between the wall and barrel to clip through. We won't be clipping into this building right now, we're just setting ourselves up for when we do need to clip through later. Alright, now that both barrels have been set up, we can hover over to the dock here to set up what is known as Turbo Gate. And this is where things get complicated. The following footage is from speedrunner JTown2909, playing on a practice ROM, as practice ROMs can display these values. Having these values on screen will better explain this setup. The values to pay attention to here are MX, Mario's current X-axis position, MY, Mario's current Y-axis position, MZ, Mario's current Z-axis position, MR, Mario's current facing angle, and TAR, which represents the turbo gate's position on screen, specifically this turbo gate by the lighthouse that holds a blue coin. When facing towards this turbo gate, as Mario moves around, the TAR value changes, and that's because the turbo gate's position, which is loaded somewhere we can't see, changes as Mario moves. But if Mario turns around and away from where the turbo gate is, the TAR value no longer changes, because the turbo gate is no longer loaded. The goal in this turbo gate setup is to have the TAR value read a certain value, specifically C13FA6A0, and then unload the turbo gate so that this value locks in place. The sole purpose of this setup is to lock in this TAR value. It's a very precise setup, and it goes a little something like this. While hanging onto the ledge of the dock, center the camera while holding the C-stick all the way up so that Mario's as close to the camera as possible. Move Mario to the very right of the dock ledge. Pull Mario up, center camera. Get Mario into lock mode, which involves holding L and then B so that you can let go of L and move left and right freely without moving Mario. Turn, do one side step to the right, locked mode again, turn to angle 8000, which can be done by using FLUDD to spray a little. This will have Mario facing straight forward. Let go of B, go into Y camera. Let the camera settle, go out. Let the camera settle again. Locked mode. 2 side steps to the right, 1 more side step. Now turn 1 angle to the right, and then 1 more side step to the right. Now, spin in a full circle while holding R, let go of B. Pause, hold the C-stick to the right, and keep holding that until the camera settles. Pause, let go of the C-stick. The camera will settle again. Target, locked mode again, followed by frame perfect sidestepping to the left, and then pausing on the correct frame. Pausing too early or too late would mean having to redo this entire setup, which I'm sure you can imagine would be very annoying. If pause on the correct frame, then next unpause, let the camera settle. And at this point, the TAR value should be exactly C13FA6A0. Congratulations. There are many visual cues during the setup so that we can do this all in the real game where all these values wouldn't be on the screen, like Mario's shadow on certain planks of the dock. or floods water inventory as it lines up with objects and lines on screen. I will not be covering those in this video, but if you want to try doing this yourself and want a more detailed explanation on the turbo gate setup, then JTown2909 has a tutorial video on this run, which I'll link in the description. Now that the tar value is correct, next, we need to make our way to the room where you play the box smashing minigame. But it's very important we do this while the turbo gate by the lighthouse remains off screen. Otherwise, the tar value will change. To do this, we can hold slightly down on the control stick to make Mario turn around without moving, and then target so that Mario is facing away from the turbo gate. Now, we can move freely without the tar value changing, as long as the turbo gate remains unloaded, allowing us to navigate to the box game room taking this path. What's great about this room is we can now spin the camera around and the tar value won't change, because the turbo gate won't load while we're in this room. And it's in this room, we need to perform another precise setup, known as the spin buffer setup. The values to pay attention to here are CR, the camera's rotation angle, CON, which represents your controller's input as they appear in the game's code, and then all these numbers here, which represent the spin buffer, which the game uses to determine if you're going to do a spin jump or not on your next jump. The following is an explanation on spin buffer, taken from JTown2909's tutorial video. The spin buffer values are determined by two things, your current stick angle and your current camera angle. The game determines where to put these values into the spin buffer by looking at the total amount of in-game quarter frames of the joystick and adjust the spin buffer accordingly. A quarter frame is just a quarter of one frame, where 4 quarter frames make up a frame. For example, if you hold the joystick for 1 quarter frame, the game will look at the first 4 values and will update them based on your joystick and camera's current angle. To keep it simple, the game adds 1 quarter frame of movement to the spin buffer. If you hold the joystick for 2 quarter frames, the game will instead look at the first 8 values and add 2 quarter frames of movement to the spin buffer. Each additional quarter frame means the game will look at 4 more values of the spin buffer. The spin buffer values can also be adjusted by buffering the start menu and Z menu, which is just pulling up the map, where the game uses formulas to calculate how many quarter frames to add to the spin buffer, based off how many frames you buffer. Sorry in advance to anyone who hates math. This is the formula for the start menu, and this is the formula for the Z menu. For example, if you buffer for 1 frame using the start menu, then since you only buffered for 1 frame, that means you didn't buffer any extra frames, and the extra frames buffered value will be 0. Based on that, the game will add 1 quarter frame of movement to the spin buffer. Unless you're going to legitimately attempt this run yourself, then all you need to know is that speedrunners take advantage of these mechanics in order to manipulate values in the spin buffer. And this is what setting up the spin buffer correctly looks like. It's a series of very precise movements, menu buffering, and camera movements. JTown2909 breaks down this setup in detail in his tutorial video if you want to learn more. Now, you might be asking, why do we need to do these long, tedious, and annoying setups? And I'll tell you why soon. But first, it's time to leave this box room. However, we can't just simply walk out. Doing that will change the tar value, which will ruin everything we worked so hard for. Remember, the tar value is related to this specific turbo gate by the lighthouse, which is on the other side of this building when walking out of the box room. So we need to leave the box room and make our way to the Pinna statue without loading the turbo gate to avoid the tar value from changing. To do this, we can dive jump from the spot where the spin buffer was properly set up to here and then dive jump out of the door on an angle. It's here I should also probably mention that for the rest of the run, we can't move the joystick, as doing so will overwrite the spin buffer, unless in Y camera conveniently, making getting around Delfino Plaza a bit complicated. This means we need to do a series of dives and rolls in order to get around. So, the goal is to get to the Pinna statue by diving and rolling while also making sure the turbo gate stays unloaded. Once at the Pinna statue, assuming the tar value and spin buffer hasn't changed, we can now put the barrel we placed here earlier to use. We'll want to stand by the bottom right corner of the barrel, which we can do by slowly hovering to the barrel. Another option is to do a little dive towards the barrel, but then you risk breaking the barrel, which would kill the run. So if you're not striving for the world record, then slowly hovering to the barrel is the safe bet. Once in the right spot in front of the barrel, we then need to go into Y camera and face directly at the middle of the red X. And this is done to set us up to activate what is called cutscene underflow. I'll explain what that is very soon. To activate this glitch, we must spray the red X to trigger the blue coin cutscene. Then, pick up the barrel, put it back down, and do a backflip to get Mario into this position. Turn the camera so that Mario is facing straight forward towards the docks past the Pinna statue. Jump, dive, and roll to this general area, making sure to not use the joystick. Then, we need to go into Y camera and line Mario up perfectly with the center of the second barrel we placed earlier. And then from this point, jump and dive and jump again so that Mario can clip through the building without having to use the joystick. The timing of this is very important, because after triggering the blue coin cutscene, we only have around 14 seconds to do all this, clip through the building, and dive into the previously collected shine. And we need to collect the shine at exactly around 14 seconds. So if you clip in with some time to spare, you'll need to wait a bit before diving into the shine. This timing is important because eventually the blue coin despawns and the red X on the statue reappears. And when this happens, the barrel we place by the statue, which is full of water by the way, explodes for being too close to the red X, which just cleans the red X again. We don't get to see this because right away it starts another blue coin cutscene, and we need to grab the shine while this cutscene is playing. If all done correctly, this is what happens. We get this very weird cutscene that then fades to white, where the game looks like it's soft locked. So what's happening here? Why did we have to do all these precise and tedious setups to have certain values for tar and spin buffer? Why did we have to trigger all these cutscenes before that? And why is it important we grab the shine while the blue coin cutscene plays? Well, as some of you may have already figured out, it all ties into what is called ACE, which stands for Arbitrary Code Execution, and is a speedrunning strategy used in other video games like Paper Mario and Pokemon. It's quite technical, but ACE is the action of executing instructions, or code, from outside the code section of the memory. To put it simply, the goal is to execute code in a specific region of the memory that you can manipulate. And if you can put any arbitrary value inside that memory region, then you can make the game execute any instruction you want. Like, oh, I don't know, warp to Bowser. Pretty powerful stuff. ACE in Super Mario Sunshine is accomplished by a few things. It involves setting up cutscene data referring to the internal information the game uses to track and manage cutscenes. This means triggering cutscenes. It involves unloading the turbo gate and having its position data, aka tar value, be read as a jump instruction to your spin buffer code. It involves writing code into the spin buffer, which is used to warp us to Bowser, by holding certain stick directions and pausing on certain quarter frames. As far as speedrunners are aware, this is the easiest memory area to manipulate, despite it not looking easy at all. And it involves using the cutscene overflow glitch I mentioned earlier, to trick the game into running the code that was set up using the turbo gate and spin buffer. And to trigger this glitch, we need to grab a shine while another cutscene is playing. This glitch occurs when the game is forced to load more cutscenes than it was designed to handle in a single area, which is why we need to grab this shine while the blue coin cutscene is playing. How it works is the game keeps track of cutscenes using internal flags. Normally, these are triggered in a controlled sequence. However, if a player manipulates the game, like we've done, the game's cutscene system can be overloaded. When too many cutscenes are queued or attempted without being cleared properly, the game can mistakenly assume certain events have already happened, or it may overwrite data for one cutscene with another, which is known as cutscene overflow. In this situation, cutscene overflow is used to replay the shine spawn cutscene over the right bell tower played previously. When we replay this cutscene, which you can't see here, and I'll explain why that is, the game will use the shine's address to try and spawn the shine. But since the shine is no longer there, the game uses the position of the turbo gate, aka tar value, in the process of finding the code that spawns the shine, as it's the tar value that loads into the memory address that previously held the right bell shine that we spawned earlier. So by manipulating the tar value during the turbo gate setup, we can redirect the game to read code from the spin buffer that we set up in the box game room. And it's only on the Rico Harbor Unlocked Plaza map that we can do this setup, as before that point, the tar value is something we can't control, making the setup impossible. This is why 2 shines are collected in Delfino Plaza, because only after 3 shines are collected will the polluted piranha plant to unlock Rico Harbor appear, which takes up memory and causes the turbo gate to load into the address we need. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that this run is only possible on version 1.0 of the Japanese version of the game, and that's because memory doesn't line up the same way between versions. So on other versions, the bell shine wouldn't be replaced with the turbo gate, but with something we can't control. The glitch itself exists on all versions though, and fun fact, the first setup was found on the PAL version. Now historically, when a shine get cutscene is started while another cutscene is playing, the game would end up crashing. But back in 2020, a player by the name of Noki Doki, who essentially discovered the ACE exploit in the first place, learned that's not always the case. The following is an explanation written by Noki Doki. Super Mario Sunshine has 8 slots to store active cutscenes, numbered 0 to 7. It also keeps track of the slot number of the last cutscene that started, and the slot number of the last cutscene that ended. When a cutscene starts, the last started cutscene slot number increases, cycles back to 0 if it would go past 7, and the new cutscene gets loaded into that slot. Once the cutscene ends, the last ended cutscene slot number increases in turn, becoming equal to the last started cutscene slot number. Since both slot numbers are equal, the game knows it ended as many cutscenes as it started, so there are no more cutscenes to process. Since there's usually no way to end more cutscenes than you start, and the slot numbers are being used in a cycle, anytime the last started and ended slot numbers don't match up, that must mean there are cutscenes left to process, even if the last ended cutscene seems to be ahead of the last started cutscene. But when a Shine Get cutscene starts during another cutscene, for some reason, it ends twice, leaving the game with -1 cutscenes left to play, which the game sees as 8 minus 1 equals 7. Now, you rarely need all 8 cutscene slots in a normal play, so the remaining ones are just filled with garbage data left over from what you did before. When the game tries to process those 7 cutscenes that never existed to begin with, it can't make sense of that leftover data, and that's why the game would crash. But if you played enough cutscenes in the area beforehand, so that all the slots actually contain cutscenes, the game is able to replay them all. Although you can't see most of them, like the Shine Spawn cutscene, because of the Shine Get fade out. It looks like a softlock for a while, but then after 50 seconds, the save box finally shows up like nothing happened at all. This is why we triggered 6 blue coin cutscenes, the Shadow Mario painting cutscene, and the Shine Spawn cutscene, and specifically all on one map. The map being the Shadow Mario Chase Plaza, which has distinctly different music from other maps. That's because every time we reload the area or go to a different one, the cutscene queue starts over from the first slot. So the first cutscene we watch after loading overwrites the first slot, the second one overwrites the second slot, and so on. In this case, the first Shine Get cutscene would go into the first slot because we played 8 cutscenes before that, which is a full lap around the queue. And then the second Shine Get cutscene would also go into the first slot because it's the first cutscene since loading, thus overwriting the previous Shine Get cutscene. The order of triggering the cutscenes isn't too important. All that's important is that the Shine Spawn cutscene is placed in a late slot. For Ace to happen, the Shine Spawn cutscene needs to be in a late slot, specifically slots 4 to 8, so that it won't get overridden later on, since we need to play 3 cutscenes as part of the setup. The blue coin cutscene before placing the barrel, the second blue coin cutscene from the barrel exploding, and the Shine Get cutscene. However, the RTA setup uses a payload being the custom code that gets executed via Ace, that depends on the slot number in order to be as short as possible. So for that payload to work, the Shine Spawn cutscene has to be in slot 8. For a long time, Ace in Super Mario Sunshine was only TAS viable until 8 months ago when a player by the name Sue discovered and performed the first RTA route on real hardware, which shook the Super Mario Sunshine speedrunning community. And now, we have players beating the game in less than 20 minutes. But yeah, that's how Super Mario Sunshine is beaten with only 3 shines, by storing cutscenes, manipulating the turbo gate and spin buffer, and executing Ace to warp to the end of the game, where all that's left to do is defeat Bowser. It's all very technical, and I have no idea how players figure this stuff out, but I'm so glad they do, because it's so fascinating to watch and learn about, at least for me, and hopefully for you too. I want to give a huge shout out to JTown2909, the current world record holder in this 80% Ace speedrun, and Noki Doki, who discovered the exploit to make this run even possible, for helping me make this video and ensuring the info discussed is accurate. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh yeah, and don't forget to book a trip with Dodo Airlines. Just a reminder that by becoming a Press A member or Patreon, you get access to the monthly Pikmin Hunger Games, where you will be a Pikmin in a chaotic situation in hopes of being the last one standing. And with that, I want to thank Clone Trooper Wheeler, Serena Bliss, Nice Gamer Musics, Young Smoky VP17, Help I'm Stuck in Cave, Anarchist Kale, Dr. Nook, Komodo 157, General Juicer, The One and Only Lazarus, Daniel Garrett, Logan Buchanan, Anthony Cermak, Nolan Filter, Soragama 25, Marcus Vandergag, Omo, Fossil, Koi 13, Puddles Megan, Leburb, Rebecca Lyons, Real Backfish, Liam Helt, and Blue Pikmin is the best Pikmin, and if you say otherwise, then Louis will eat your soul. Also, this is a completely real name.